And many thanks for joining us on Nationwide on the NTA. I am Ifoma Ojinta. The emergence of President Bola Tinubu as chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, will lead to economic prosperity and lasting peace in the region. This was the views of senators when the Deputy Senate President of the Senate, Barau Jibril, raised a motion jointly sponsored by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio. Other members of the leadership and entire Senate congratulating President Bola Tinubu on his emergence as the chairman of ECOWAS heads of government. Senate observes that as a strategist, the President will promote democracy and good governance as well as ensure effective response to security threats within the sub-region. Senate equally notes that clinching this influential position reaffirms Nigeria's leadership role. The lawmakers advised that the opportunity should be maximally utilized in addressing challenges faced by Nigerians residing in sister countries within the community. In the meantime, public affairs commentators have commended President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's speech at the 63rd ECOWAS summit and urged him to restore economic, political and security stability among member states in the sub-region. Discussing matters arising from the ECOWAS summit, the analysts also noted that the summit's decision to address barriers to intra-regional trade could make a significant impact on regional trade. Ekemini Williams has more details.
Of states in West Africa, including Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, were in Guinea-Bissau recently for the 63rd ECOWAS summit. President Tinubu, who was making his first outing at the summit, was chosen by his peers as the new chairman of ECOWAS. Diplomats, international affairs and public affairs analysts described this as a strong acknowledgement of Nigeria's leadership role in ECOWAS and Africa.
Part of the statement which Mr. President made that Nigeria is back. You know, wherever you have regional integration, there must be a driver. There must be a champion who is driving it. When ECOWAS was ECOWAS, it was Nigeria that is given the purposeful leadership. It's the one driving the process. In Europe, why we are seeing European Union very intact, very strong, it was because of the leadership provided by Germany.
We're hoping that Nigeria, in leading ECOWAS, will adopt, in bringing about, improvement or mitigation in some of these problems that we are highlighting. We cannot be talking about progress or capital development, in the absence of peace, because naturally economics will say that capital takes flight, where there is peace, or money runs away from crisis.
They noted some of the challenges countries in the sub-region have been grappling with, including insecurity and unconstitutional change in governments, such as in Mali, Guinea-Conakry and Burkina Faso, as well as poor intra-regional trade. They urged President Tinubu to give effect to the promise contained in his speech at the summit and restore vibrancy to ECOWAS and the sub-region.
It's going to be adopted to these countries that have refused to, abide by democratic principles. Once these non-friendly measures are not achieving the intended purpose, then a deployment of the ECOWAS standby force might become necessary. Advancements of democracy, security of lives and property are the only things that can guarantee peace.
The big elephant is the fact that we cannot run away from it unless you have the conducive atmosphere. So you need to now address that conflict area, make sure that it's business friendly.
They also took note of the low level of formal intra-regional trade and were hopeful that the decision of the summit to set up a committee led by former ECOWAS Commission President Mohamed Ibn Chambers would turn around the situation. In Abuja, Ekemini Williams, NTA News.
The House of Representatives has received a request from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for an amendment to spend 500 billion naira from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. The President, in his requests read at Wednesday's plenary by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas, is seeking House approval to use the requested funds for the provision of palliatives to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy removal on Nigerians.
I hereby to request the approval of the House of Representatives for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act in accordance with the attached. The request has become necessary in order to, among other things, source for funds necessary to provide palliatives to mitigate the effect of the recent removal of fuel subsidy on Nigerians. Thus, the sum of 500 billion naira only has been extracted from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819 billion 536 million 937,815 naira only for the provisions of palliatives to Nigerians to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy removal. While I hope that the House of Representatives will consider this request expeditiously, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration. Signed, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
National Assembly correspondent Mitari Ikwen reports that the House also resolved to investigate alleged mismanagement of billions of naira as well as alleged fictitious contract awards by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA. The National Coordinator of All Progressives Congress Election Marshals, Ibinabo Dokubo, says there is hope in sight for a more prosperous and united Nigeria under the current administration. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the APC chieftain appealed to citizens, particularly the political class, to engage in constructive criticism that will promote development across all critical sectors for national growth and stability.
I also use this medium to call on all youths and women all over the country to join hands to support His Excellency President Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu as he takes tough decisions to make Nigeria great. Tribalism and religion should not divide us as a nation.
APC election marshals also solicited for a reward system that will positively affect youth and women in terms of appointments, empowerment, and job opportunities. Meanwhile, National Vice Chairman in charge of Northwest of the All Progressives Congress, Salihu Lukman, says the prosperity of the progressive family depend on the willingness of leaders to act according to the provisions of the party's constitution. Addressing journalists in Abuja, Lukman advised stakeholders of the party to propose an agenda that will address lingering intra-party issues ahead of the proposed National Executive Committee meeting of the party.
As a party man, I am willing and I am confident, like I said here, if we enter that meeting, members will really apply themselves and ensure some of these issues, if not all, are addressed. I am confident, I don't think we'll get into National Executive Council or National Caucus and come back like we are today. I'm confident that we are going to come out refreshed in a way that would challenge us to return and start organizing what you are saying, restoring order. Because the minimum, any organization that cannot respect its constitution is no organization. The beauty of democracy is about rule of law. Take out rule of law, we don't have democracy.
Appealed to members and leaders at all levels to remain worthy ambassadors of the progressive ideology under the government of renewed hope. And now to judicial matters. The Federal High Court, Abuja Division, has affirmed the emergence of Ahmed Usman Ododo as the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Kogi State in the forthcoming governorship election slated for November 2023. The presiding judge, Justice James Omotosho, gave the order in a pre-election matter filed by Senator Smart Adeyemi and some other aspirants that participated in the APC governorship primary primary election. Justice Omotosho dismissed the suit for lacking in merit. The court held that the plaintiffs needed to prove the allegations of forgery, falsification of results beyond reasonable doubts. The court equally pointed out that the burden rests on them to produce the alleged forged result or the original to discharge the burden, holding that failure to discharge the burden was fatal to the case of the plaintiffs. Justice Omotosho held that having reviewed all the evidence in the matter, the court had no doubt that the APC primary election held in all the wards of Kogi State on the 14th of April 2023. Meanwhile, one of the plaintiffs in the matter, Senator Smart Adeyemi, has signified the intention to appeal the verdict of the trial court. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has adjourned hearing of all pending applications in a suit alleging the breach of the provisions of Power Sector Reform Act in increasing the electricity tariff to 25th October 2023. Miriam Emeka Amadi reports that the presiding judge, Justice Binta Nyako, gave the order at the resumed hearing of the matter in Abuja.
On 19th February 2016 filed a suit against the Minister of Power, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, Association of Electricity Distribution Company DISCOs, Abuja Electricity Distribution Company AEDC, and Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, in order to ensure that the parties comply with all standards operating procedures in introducing the increase in electricity tariff. At the resumed hearing of the suit, counsel to the plaintiff drew the attention of the court to the pending applications, in which one of them was an application for interlocutory injunction, restraining all the defendants, including the AEDC and all DISCOs in Nigeria, from increasing the electricity tariff. Counsel to the plaintiff maintained that all the defendants have been served since 2016. So to the third and fourth defendants, the Association of Electricity Distribution Company and the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, while challenging the jurisdiction of the court, insisted that the court processes were only served to the third defendant. Justice Binta Nyako, who was not pleased with the protracted nature of the case, advised that all defendants be served the applications before the next adjourned date of 25th October 2023.
Despite the pendency of this motion, electricity tariffs has been constantly in the increase. As a matter of fact, as we are talking now, I know there is another move to increase another tariff. So I believe this motion is in time. The court has considered all the circumstances and has advised that, okay, we should come on a later date to hear the motion and all other pending applications.
They have forgotten that these defendants they are private companies who are in business as well. So, and business is for profits. So I would see, I cannot comment further until the court has determined the case, and so we'll see how it goes.
The matter was earlier referred to the Federal High Court Dispute Resolution Center for amicable dissolution, but the center reported back expressing its inability to resolve the issues involved within the time frame given by the court. The 3 out of the 5 defendants were absent in court. Miriam Emeka Amadi, NTA.
The federal government has been acknowledged for its efforts towards the rehabilitation and protection of children who are caught up in conflict situations. This was emphasized by the ambassador of Malta to Nigeria, Vanessa Fraser, when she led a delegation of the United Nations Security Council Working Group on Children and Armed Conflict to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development in Abuja. Ruth Aguele reports.
Armed conflict in northeast Nigeria has claimed thousands of lives and disrupted livelihoods, and for children who are vulnerable, they mostly bear the brunt. Reports from UNICEF says since 2009, more than 8,000 girls and boys have been recruited and used as child soldiers in different roles by armed groups.
Yes, children have been caught up in conflict.
In complementing federal government's efforts towards the rehabilitation and reintegration of children caught up in conflict situations, a delegation from the United Nations Security Council Working Group on Children and Armed Conflict is on an assessment visit to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to strengthen mechanisms already in place and provide durable solutions.
The government is doing a lot and is one of the countries that is really working with the United Nations on these issues. Their reintegration is very important into society, making sure that their human rights are protected.
Now we're having over 95,000 individuals that have exited from armed groups, especially Boko Haram. 60% of them are women and children.
And most of the concentration of efforts in the past was to keep them alive, put them away from harm. But now we are resolved to improve their resilience and also to put them on the path to social development and improved capacity.
For the delegation, available data will help improve implementation of policies, as the ties established will no doubt build a strong social workforce towards creating sustainable path for a better future. In Abuja, Ruth Aguwele, NTA News.
Nigeria's communications and digital economy structure has attained a recognizable height in the global digital space and is becoming a model for most African countries. A delegation from Zambia's Information and Communications Technology Authority, a country of 18 million people, is in Nigeria to learn the ways and methods of Nigeria, a nation with larger population, has been able to deploy and manage its digital technology infrastructure. Zambia is set to deploy its public key infrastructure, PKI, a backbone that provides secure system for authenticating and encrypting critical infrastructure. So the theme is interacting with Nigeria's Galaxy backbone.
And you need a lot of digital skills on how to make sure the citizenry have the right knowledge of using that, those services. So we looked at it as a best location because of some of those factors.
Nigeria's Galaxy backbone assures collaboration with Zambia as it deploys major digital services.
We have to support them and try to see that we have built on the single market, single African market, that is solely our own. We're working to come up with a single market for the whole of Africa. So, and all these things need to be collaborations.
Ministry of Education assured Nigerians that all admission processes into the country's unity schools will be concluded timely and in line with the already established criteria. The ministry gave the assurance while receiving results of this year's Common Entrance Examination from the National Examination Council, NECO. The admission criteria include 60% merit, 30% equality of state, and 10% exigency. The ministry appreciated the Zamfara state government for the appreciable increase in registrants from 1,000 to 2,091. Its current efforts to offset the debt owed NECO and urged Adamawa, Bayelsa and Kebbi to register more pupils for the examination.
1,862 registration as against last year's 71,738. The Lagos State remains the highest with about 18,644, and Taraba has the lowest registrants with 102. We see an increase in female enrollment. We have 38,801 female registrants against 34,064 male. We have reduced the gender parity and is beginning to tilt somehow against the boys. So please, let both boys and girls go to school. 3,036 people were absent. And in terms of scores, 76 students had the highest score of 201, and 6 students have the lowest score of 1.
The ministry acknowledged current challenges of infrastructural development, feeding and teacher quality in the schools, however assured that government is doing its best to improve the conditions for effective teaching and learning. And our first stop on Nationwide is our Just Network Center with Felicia as our guide. Hello, Felicia.
Ifeoma, glad to have you join us in Jos. Plateau State government has expressed readiness to work towards the implementation of the federal government Safe Schools financing initiative. Governor Caleb Mutfwang said this while receiving members of the technical team of the project on an assessment visit to the state. Priscilla Grumnan reports.
Safe Schools financing plan is 144 billion naira initiative of the federal government aimed at providing safer schools and learning environment from terrorist attacks across the nation, with an implementation plan between 2023 to 2026. National coordinator of the program, Halima Ilia, says key players including the government, Ministry of Education and security agencies make up the technical working committee responsible for the implementation of the project. The project coordinator says this will cover 50% of the most vulnerable schools across the nation.
Selection was done based on the frequency of attacks and the vulnerability of the states, which Plateau State is selected as one of the pilot states.
Governor Caleb Mutfwang, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the State, Samuel Jatau, says the government is willing to support the program as it will improve enrollment and retention of students in schools.
Us as a state, we are ready to partner with you to play our own part, whatever the requirements are, because like I said, we need it on the plateau. We have quite a number of the schools that will need that kind of intervention.
State coordinator of the Safe Schools financing, Peter Lamba, hints that 3 tertiary institutions and a number of secondary schools have been identified for the prompt implementation of the project. In Jos, Priscilla Grumnan, NTA News.
In other news, critical key players in the 2023 general elections in Plateau State converged on Jos for in-depth appraisal of the electoral process towards drawing appropriate recommendation for improvements in subsequent elections. Ndenyang Andayaba Gang has details.
The 2023 post-election review meeting at the state level was attended by critical players who participated actively in the general elections with focus on 15 thematic areas. They include the general state of preparedness for the 2023 general elections, voter access expansion policy and voter registration process, and PVC collection, as well as recruitment, training, deployment and payment of election personnel, among others. It provided an avenue for critical introspection on how the elections were conducted and if it was in line with the core mandate of the Commission.
It's a good process, and everybody here seems to be ready to say what happened at the field.
It's largely an internal review, but INEC is inviting those of us who serve as ad hoc staff to be part of this review. Is quite commendable.
The resident electoral commissioner, INEC Plateau State, Dr. Oliver Teso Agundu, who commended ad hoc staff during the elections, says the review meeting is in tandem with efforts of the Commission to continuously improve on its mandate.
We have close to about 40 to 50 reports that have been turning from different observer groups, both locally and internationally, and some other critical stakeholders have also made their remarks and comments and opinion and suggestions about the election in terms of trying to improve our electoral process.
Observations and recommendations are expected to be forwarded to the INEC headquarters for further action. In Jos, Ndenyang and Abuja, NTA News.
Those are the stories from here. We'll take our first break. Nationwide continues thereafter in Abuja.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now, Jigawa State Governor Umar Damari says his administration will not condone acts of injustice, dishonesty, and misappropriation of public funds by public servants or anyone entrusted with public responsibility. The governor was speaking during a spot check to irrigation farmers in some local government areas to hear if they have benefited from empowerment package given to them by the state government. Muhammad Musa Askira has details.
Umar Namadi was furious with officials handling empowerment program targeting irrigation farmers in the state who have allegedly diverted the money meant for the promotion of irrigation farming to boost food production and ensuring food security in the state to enrich themselves at the detriment of the target beneficiaries. The governor, through verbal interaction with the beneficiaries, unraveled that each beneficiary of the program was supposed to receive the sum of 114,000 naira in addition to water pump, fertilizer, agrochemicals and other inputs, but instead each was given stipend ranging from 8 to 13,000 naira, while some were not given a dime even after being profiled as beneficiaries of the empowerment.
I'm not really happy with what I have seen, and that's why I made it an obligation of myself to come and see, because the responsibility is on me. We will put a committee to investigate it properly, and we receive the reports and we'll deal with the report the way it is supposed to be done.
Another concern raised by the governor is the inflation of the cost of contract. For instance, this project was meant to drain flood when it comes and protect these farms, but Governor Umar Namadi says it will not serve the purpose because it was poorly constructed at the inflated cost of 54 million naira. The governor, who identified lack of effective supervision and monitoring to ensure accountability and transparency in government business as responsible for failure in the execution of government's policies and programs, says his government will not tolerate such ineptitude and will deal with anyone found guilty in such acts. These are some of the government officials under whose supervision such misappropriations were uncovered.
If at the local government level we don't have that courage and actually that confidence from the facilitators that the right thing has been done, is very disappointing, honestly.
Without this kind of close supervision, people will be left behind, and then so many things will be in mess.
Observers believed that if the governor maintains the tempo, the state will be better for it, and Jigawa will soon be a reference point for good governance, as it is already known for in many areas. From Dutse, Muhammad Musa Askira, NTA News.
Experts in the agricultural value chain have urged the present administration to review policies on agriculture towards sufficient food production. This, they believe, will ameliorate the impact of subsidy removal on the economy. Kingsley Amajiri reports.
The immediate past administration, in its determined effort to encourage patronage of made-in-Nigerian products, closed the nation's borders as part of strategies to actualize set objectives. In the agricultural sector, for instance, the policy encouraged increased production of local rice to some extent. Did that policy succeed in addressing food sufficiency? Professor Usman Zaka shared his thoughts with NTA News.
Food security is the ability, one, to have accessibility to the food, not only accessible, but must be affordable. When you flood the market with so much supply, then price will naturally come down. What it means is that there was something wrong that we didn't do right. That means there was a false production. It wasn't real.
The removal of fuel subsidy, some experts noted, has equally impacted on the standard of living of Nigerians. There are calls for investment in mechanized agriculture in Nigeria and provision of processing and storage facilities towards enhanced food security.
Some of us are crying to government too, if they can give us loan, no matter how small, soft loan, to enable us. I have land here that I can do more than I'm doing, but I need the money to do it.
So if we can catch them young, like I told you of the garden-based learning project, we can ensure that every school, as a requirement, every school must have a garden, let's call it a garden, no matter how small.
Proponents note that investment should become a culture even within urban settlements as integrated efforts towards food sufficiency. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajiri, NTA News.
The Character Commission has put in place modalities towards improving its performance in the actualization of its mandate of equity, justice and fairness. Chairman of the Commission, Habib Nkaka, gave the assurance during a strategic meeting with commissioners of the establishment. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday reports.
Ensuring equity and fairness in the distribution of posts and infrastructural development in the country is the core mandate of the Federal Character Commission.
We are a regulator commission.
One after the other, commissioners reeled out their strategic plans towards making the remaining 2 out of the 5 years term better by putting in more efforts to fulfill the vision of the commission. Responding to requests from members of the Unemployed Youths Association of Nigeria, Muhiba Dankaka said no Nigerian looking up to the commission will be disappointed.
I promise you one thing, when they come down for employment, we make sure that they advertise inside the newspaper so that you people can see it and you can quickly apply. With this one, it will be easier for unemployed youths in Nigeria to get employed.
The activities we are doing now, we need to just increase upon them, ensure that we are monitoring the MDAs properly and ensuring that they are following the laid down procedures for employment, promotion, recruitment, and including the infrastructural distribution.
In government employment, what we are looking at is to ensure that it is not shady, it is not given out, it must be given out on merit. That is our stand. And then for skills, we partner with organizations, different ministries and different government agencies to organize empowerment programs.
The commission has a representative each from the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
You're watching Nationwide on the NTA. We now pause for some messages, more reports in a moment. Please stay. As part of its strategy aimed at combating security challenges in the country, the Nigerian Army is interfacing with commanding officers in Lagos with a view to enhancing their operational capacity for better performance in a joint environment. Olumide Eguntala reports that the theme of the workshop is in consonance with the mandate of streamlining tactical approach in combating insecurity.
Like in many countries around the world, Nigeria is faced with security challenges ranging from banditry, terrorism to kidnapping. The Nigerian Army, however, has recorded successes in tackling the multi-dimensional security problem and in taking a step further through a robust and holistic approach. This training for commanding officers became imperative. The Chief of Army Staff, Major General Tauri Lagbaja, who was represented by the Commander Corps Engineers, Major General Philip Eromasele, assured members of the public of pragmatic solutions to security challenges as Nigerian Army is repositioning to achieve its core mandate.
With the same or improved resources, achieving optimal results. So that's our primary focus in this regard. While the Army headquarters intensifies effort to acquire more relevant equipment, there is a need to intensify training at the lower levels that the optimal use of this equipment are made to achieve desired result to the admiration of every Nigerian.
The General Officer Commanding 81 Division, Major General Obina Ajua, emphasized improved intermilitary agencies cooperation, healthy civil-military relationship, and professionalism in the fight against the nation's enemies.
I want to reassure the Chief of Army Staff that we are much conscious of the adult tasks of protecting the southwest, southeast, and south-south flank of our dear country, and that we shall continue to work assiduously in tandem with other security agencies to ensure that our area of responsibility is secured, while also making sure lives and properties are effectively protected.
Intelligence sharing in our joint environment, challenges and prospects is part of this course at the training. In Lagos, Olumide Eguntala, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons says it is mopping up illegal firearms in the hands of unauthorized persons and started the prosecution of arms traffickers in the country. The Zonal Director Southwest, Shola Akinlade, disclosed this during an interaction with journalists in Ado Ekiti. Olubukola Aduwa was there for NTA News.
For the control of
being used by the federal security agencies.
The center also employed members of the public who are in possession of illegal small arms and light weapons to submit them in their own interest. In Ado-Ekiti, Olubukola Aduwo, NTA News.
The Ogun State Police Command has paraded 28 suspects arrested for cultism, kidnapping and defilement of minor in various parts of the state. The state's Commissioner of Police, Abiodun Alamutu, paraded the suspects at the command's headquarters in Elewe-Eron, Abeokuta. Yemi Dalemo reports.
The suspects who were arrested for cultism-related activities in Ijebu-Ode, Shagamu and Ogijo include 2 suspects who attempted to kidnap some people at Fere village along Owode-Egba Road. The suspects, according to the State Commissioner of Police, Abiodun Alamutu, are notorious cult members terrorizing various parts of Ogun State, including Abeokuta Township. Also paraded alongside the alleged cult members is a 66-year-old father who allegedly defiled his 7-year-old daughter whose mother left him 2 years ago. Items recovered from the suspects include cut-to-size locally made guns, assault rifles, English pistol, live ammunition, charms, among others.
The success we have achieved today would not have been possible without the support of the good people of Ogun State, who are giving us timely and credible information. I hereby appeal to them not to relent in their efforts until palpable peace reign in the state.
CP Alamutu warned criminally minded individuals to have a change of heart or be ready to face the full weight of the law, as the command will deal decisively with anyone who takes crime as business in any part of Ogun State. In Abeokuta, Yemi Dalemo, NTA News.
For active participation of Nigeria on the review cycle of the United Nations Human Rights Council, the National Human Rights Commission is engaging various key players in addressing root causes of inequalities, conflicts and other structural gaps of human rights abuses in the country in line with international best practices. Omenka Marachuku reports that engagement will provide an agenda for Nigeria to identify its human rights priorities and as well accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and other national development plans.
Principally to enrich the report so that stakeholders can make inputs, and of course the outcome is that the report will be submitted to the UN Human Rights Council as part of the documentation that the council will use to review the human rights situation in Nigeria in the last 4 years.
Human rights is everybody's business, and if these thematic areas are not properly interrogated, then we will continue to have human rights abuse. But I want to truly identify myself and my organization and the community of persons with disability with what the Commission is doing, and hope that we will have a better future where all the rights of persons, irrespective of their creed, color, are protected.
The validation meeting will also take a critical look at the alternative reports in ensuring accuracy and relevance towards addressing human rights abuses in the country. And as countries begin the airlift of pilgrims back home, Lagos State government has placed priority on the aged and those who are sick as a result of the Hajj exercise. Musa Toliat has a situation report on the first flight that conveyed the returning pilgrims to Lagos.
Fulfillment of an important pillar of Islam is written over the faces of these returning pilgrims having performed the Hajj rites in Saudi Arabia. One thing is obvious: as these returning pilgrims file out of the first flight back, most of them are elderly and some others with infirmity. An official of the Muslim Pilgrims Welfare Board sheds more light on this observation.
We had a lot of support from the state governor. This flight is meant for the elderly and the sick because we prioritize the elderly.
No human program can be perfect. God has not given us that opportunity. But I think they have done extremely well under the circumstances.
Lagos State really tried. There's always room for improvement.
This pilgrim has a viable suggestion for Islamic scholars on youth and hard rights.
It's not really easy for the older ones. But alhamdulillah, Ya Allah will make it easy.
With the challenges encountered, including shortage of tents during the Hajj exercise, Lagos State Muslim Pilgrims Board has a lot to learn.
Caterers that our people are used to. If the Saudi authorities can allow NACON to choose local caterers for us, I think that will go a long way.
More than 360 pilgrims made the first returning flight from Saudi Arabia to Lagos. Musa Toliat, NTA News.
The majority of the drugs sold by hawkers are prescription drugs, which requires professional medical prescription, handling and dispensing to patients. These hawkers' activity and ripening of fruits with carbides pose serious challenges to the healthcare delivery system in Nigeria. Haman Jabani reports that the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control has identified Nigerian journalists as key players in the effort to eradicate this menace in the country.
Joseph Kadri, who is among the over 120 health journalists participating at this media sensitization program, told me that having such a forum will go a long way in addressing calls by Nigerians to take stringent regulatory actions to stem the dangerous tide of drugs hawking and ripening of fruits with calcium carbide.
To come at this point to say journalists, media organizations, come, let's inform you more about the dangers of these things. Many people in health, many people, health journalists, they don't even know that these things pose health risk.
The journalists are in the front line always, because we believe once we reach the Nigerian journalists, we have succeeded in reaching 200 million Nigerians and even our people in diaspora.
The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has noticed the dangerous practice of sales and consumptions of food artificially ripened with calcium carbide, as well as illegal hawking of drugs in the open market, and resolved to intensify and widen the scope of its publicity and public awareness campaign and arresting of suspects in the last few months.
NAFDAC has commissioned a scientific study on the best approach towards mitigating the health hazards posed by ripening of fruits with carbides. I've mandated some of my directors and support staff to take these campaigns to the nooks and corners of the country. We are confident of winning the war against these two hydra-headed public health menaces.
Journalists like Joseph, who has been covering the health sector for many years, believe that the media will strive to take it down to the grassroots so as to get positive impact of the training for total eradication of the illicit trades. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
Women journalists in leadership positions have been urged to collaborate, mentor, and build capacity of other female journalists, develop self-confidence to create a niche on the international media space. Ifoma Omesa reports that speakers at a one-day seminar on factors challenging rise of female journalists in leading newsrooms also called for the passage of the gender bill still before the National Assembly.
Over time, female journalists have made great impacts on the national and international scene, but the gap is still wide in visibility and leadership positions held by men and women in leading newsrooms. The one-day seminar had panelists including Assistant Director News, NTA Port Harcourt, Senang Bamiboye.
The preparedness is most important. The willingness to rise up and be heard. To be visible online, willing to reach out in places where we are needed.
Of kindness says that you have to be kind to yourself first and foremost.
Some challenges female journalists face include discrimination in assignments, bullying and stereotyping. This director, TVC News, Stella Dean Jacob, who was special guest at the event, says are surmountable.
These things which inhibit us, which sometimes, if we look inward, we see that the inhibitions are inherent. Sometimes you read the news, it's about a woman, but it's something so masculine that you don't see the woman in the news. The woman is lost.
If women are not given bounty opportunities at the recruitment stage, certainly to rise, it will affect them.
Convener of the seminar, Karina Igoniko, believes that this is a time for female journalists to rise to the challenge, impact the world through their profession.
We find out that a lot of women make up the numbers in the newsroom, but when it comes to leading the newsroom, we see there is a challenge. So we see that those opportunities are there, but we see in most newsrooms it is male dominated.
The leadership seminar was organized in conjunction with Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. In Port Harcourt, Ifoma Umisa, NTA News.
And on that note, we conclude Nationwide for today. We thank you for being part of it. I am Ifoma Ojinta. Bye for now.